Okay.
Yeah, because we've had a couple of other consultations today, and they were also referrals.
Oh, okay.
But there's one client that has referred to us like 6 people in the past, thank you, month or so. Alrighty, so who do we have here?
So this is Charlie. He's our oldest dog,
Okay,
7 years old.
okay,
And then this is Liala.
okay,
Both are very anxious.
I can see that.
Yes.
Him more so.
Him more so.
Yeah.
Honestly, when he's anxious like this, he's not his like true personality. Usually, like when he meets strangers, he's very, very barky.
Okay,
Like, he'll never like bite or hurt anyone, but he comes off very aggressive with his
Okay.
barking.
Like he's a little tough guy.
Yeah.
little dog syndrome.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. And then Lila's kind of our derpy dog. She's also very anxious, but like more curious. She doesn't really bark, but she's really hard to walk.
Gotcha.
Kind of pulls a lot.
Sure.
And then both of them jump on everyone when they come into our house. It's
Okay, and like excitement and stuff?
Excitement, yes.
Okay. How long does it take for them to settle after the, like?
When like someone comes over,
Yeah.
15 minutes.
that's kind of long.
Really? I feel
I feel
like
like 5
him, he'll
minutes.
like, if they're a new person, he'll bark at them.
5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, I mean 5 minutes long.
If it's like someone that's like working on our house, he will bark the entirety that
Okay.
they're there.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's like a somewhat of a friend, I guess.
But if it's a friend, he knows them, so he'll like stop barking
Gotcha.
once they greet him.
Gotcha. Yeah, he's just like pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Attention barking. And what brought you in really?
Well, I'm pregnant,
Oh, okay.
so
Congratulations.
thank you. So we gotta get these behaviors kind of on lockdown. before-
How are they with kids or around babies?
He
He's
thinks
not
the
good.
kid is like another animal and just wants to like
Bark at it.
attack it. He's never attacked or hurt anything, just barks, like crazy.
Okay. When has he been around children?
Not very often.
Not too often, just here and there, really.
Would it be like in an enclosed environment? Would it be like at a park?
Like a backyard.
Backyard? Okay.
Yeah.
So like open but enclosed?
Yeah.
And then like the kids, I'm assuming, are running around and he's barking at them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost like you would like
Even in
a
like the
dog.
house too,
Yeah.
Are they dog reactive?
Yes.
Okay. Both of them or just the one?
She's like scared of dogs,
Okay.
and he'll just bark across the street at a dog.
Gotcha.
Kind of growls and then starts barking.
Okay. How old is this little one?
7,
It's like
8.
7.
And how about her?
We don't exactly know, but we think she's around 4.
Okay.
3,
I can
4.
See that? Yeah, I was thinking 3, 4 myself. Okay. How long before baby's here?
My due date is late January.
Yeah.
So plenty of time. That's good. I get clients where it's like next month. And I'm like, man, this
Good luck.
is not gonna work out well. Okay. And what would you like? What are your goals with these two?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is to make it easy to walk while like with a stroller.
Okay.
I mean, they're
Easier
just
walking and not barking.
and not barking
That's
at
the
every single
simplest way for
thing. Yeah. That's our goal, or just minimize the barking a
Okay.
little bit.
What else?
Jumping in when someone
When
comes
people
over.
come over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
because I'm happy to see you. I want to give you a hug, but it's kind of hurts
Yeah.
people sometimes, right?
And like when they're excited that they'll listen to us, because I mean we can tell them to sit, they'll sit for treats and stuff,
Uh-huh.
but they don't. If they're excited, they don't listen to us at all.
Sure. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty standard.
We're trained as a dog.
If you could have like what you wanted with these guys, like what would that life look like? Like, would you go hiking with them? Would you go to the dog park with them? Would you go to a restaurant with them? Or is it just we walk them and you're home?
Restaurant. I would like to take them to a restaurant. Something. They're too crazy to take to restaurants right now. We wouldn't.
That would be nice, but I mean,
But mostly just like
do we really do that?
city living with a dog. like
Yeah, going on
walking.
walks, being nice at home, and when friends come over.
Okay. So what kind of dictates the length of time and just the cost and stuff is really just how much control does the owner want. And a lot of people come in and their expectation is super low because most training isn't that effective,
Right.
you know? Otherwise, if there were more better trainers, or if the methods, like the positive reinforcement treats training, have you done any training, by the way?
We have done a few with her when she was a puppy, but we didn't really stick with it, yeah.
Okay, and was it like the food-based stuff, or?
Probably, yeah.
I think so.
Like maybe clicker saying yes?
Yeah, there was a clicker, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so, like those methods are great for puppies under 6 months, but after that, like I don't rely on it as a reliable training method. Because if it was a reliable training method, there'd be a lot more whooping dogs, because it's the most popular method there is. Everybody wants to train their dog using food because it makes them feel good and all that stuff, right? But realistically speaking, it doesn't really work that way. So, dogs are physical animals. If they don't like something, they will bite or potentially bite, or like snap and stuff to set boundaries. It doesn't make them aggressive. Like whenever we talk about this with my clients, I'm assessing the situation when that sounds like a valid bite, or that sounds like your dog has issues, right? And then that kind of dictates how I approach the lesson and stuff like that. But dogs are all about physicality. Dogs don't give each other treats. Dogs don't put each other into timeout or anything like that. If a dog does something that another dog disagrees with, they would simply correct them using, a physical bite or a nip or what have you, right? So before reaching out, did you do any research on me, or read up on me, the methods that I use?
No.
No? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So I only train using one method because it's the most efficient, most effective method. Okay. So I know all the methods, from food-based to prong collar, the gentle leader, to e-collar and stuff like that. And there's like a cluster of methods that get me anywhere between like a 20% to like a 60% success rate, right? And then I have one particular method that gets me like a 90% success rate. Okay, so it's like, well, why would I mess with this stuff if that's 20 to 40 and this is like 90%, right? So the tool that I use is what's called an e-collar. Are you familiar with e-collars? No. Have you ever heard of a shock collar?
Yeah.
Okay, so shock collar is an inappropriate term. It comes from for two reasons. One, in the dog training world, we have the positive reinforcement side, which is everything is done through food. There is no punishment or corrections. It's all done through positivity or positive, methods. And the problem with that is, again, it's not realistic. At some point, either if the dog is too stressed, if the environment is too distracting, they're not going to care about what's in your hand. Okay, so if a dog is running away chasing a squirrel and you're over here waving your piece of chicken, like the squirrel is more valuable.
Right.
You're not getting your dog back, right?
Yeah.
So they use terms like shock and torture and punishment and all that stuff to make people feel bad and guilt them into not using certain approaches. It also comes from when e-collars first came out, they were not as refined as they are today. So the collars that we use go 0 to 127 in increments of 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 127. The older models of collars go up to 5. Okay, so 5 and 127 are the same. But I have 122 more breaks. Whereas people typically think it's 5 and then I go 122 more. And I go, no. Like they're the same in terms of maximum power, but I have a lot more divisions, so I can really fine tune it. So the problem with old collars was, 3, your dog could be yelping and in clear discomfort, and on 2, your dog wasn't listening because the jumps are so big. Okay, but for mine, if 30 is too high and 20 is too low, well, I can go to 25, 24, 26. I can fine tune it to the dog specifically. Okay, the technology is actually used on humans. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist? Have you ever had TENS therapy? Yes. That's an e-collar.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's a weird feeling.
Yeah. It's because it's stimulating your muscles.
Yeah.
So most people think it's like a taser. They think it's like, like tasing your dog or like touching an electric outlet or electrocuting yourself. And they go, no. I'm like, it's a centralized current. It's electric but not electricity. So the only place the dog feels the stim is where is localized. So like when you go to the chiropractor physical therapist, they put on your arm and that's where you're feeling it, right? Now, with the human version of the TENS unit, there's still risk of electrical shock. There's still risk of electrical burn. If there's water, no water, but also if you're wearing a pacemaker, they can't do that either, okay? We don't have that problem with e-collar. like it says, localized on that spot, feels it. And I work with dogs that have seizures, dogs that have heart murmurs, and all these other things, and they're perfectly fine because it's not electricity; it's just a localized current. Okay, and it's fully waterproof, so they can go swimming in it. You can go swimming with your your remote and all that stuff, and as long as everything's fitted appropriately, there's no issues with it. Okay, so the reason why it's an effective tool is because we're teaching using their language. We're using physicality. We're using that muscle contraction. So I like to think of it as a bite on a button, is what I tell people. We use it very much like you would use on a human. If you go to the office or whatever to have the stim, they start low, they work their way up, and then you'll say like that's too much, and then they bring it down, and they let the machine do its work, right? It's very much similar to dogs. We would start low, and we work our way up, and we find the number that's going to be appropriate to the specific dog, okay? Size doesn't matter, breed doesn't matter. I get a lot of people that say, oh, my dog's so gentle, like they won't need a lot of power, and then they end up needing a lot of power, okay? Because dogs are physically tough, okay, because they're meant to be bitten. So the e-collar is physicality, so a lot of dogs, even though they may be emotionally weak, they're physically tough.
Like this one.
So, the first thing that we do with the case like this is, like the walking better is obviously the leash walking or heel command, okay? That's always the first thing that we teach. It's the easiest for the dog to pick up on. It's the easiest for the owner to pick up on, and it's something that you practice regularly because most people walk their dogs to go to the bathroom, whatever, right? So that fixes a lot of problems. A correct heel can correct like 70% of behavior problems. The anxiety that they have here is really just a lack of knowing what to do. I'm not saying that they can't be anxious dogs because they absolutely can. But you see how he keeps pacing around and going, you know he's coming up here? Because he has no idea what he's supposed to do. Okay? You see how she keeps moving around as well? There's no direction here, right? So their brain goes, we don't know what to do in this new environment, so we're just going to pace around. Okay? So I would teach you how to give them direction so that they relax more. Okay? Now, physicality actually can calm the brain down. Okay? And if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a playlist where it's called Dog Training or Client Highlights. And it's where I've gotten a few cases in recent months that were behavior cases, and they were one class to the next, like just complete 180. So I break down why that is. And it's not because of the obedience, it's because of the discipline behind the obedience. It's because of the e-collar and the remoting, the physical contraction, and the discipline that calms the dogs down, okay? Because right now they have no boundaries, there's no direction, and then that's where all this pacing around and stuff is coming from, okay? So left unaddressed, it just keeps escalating, and some dogs will keep escalating, or they might cap right here, okay? And for me, if I had, dogs like these, they would be laying down calm, even with no command. They would naturally just calm down because they're going, there's like nothing in this environment for them to be like this right now, right? This is a completely bland room with a closed door, but yet they cannot relax, right? So after we do the first class, heel is typically 2 classes. I see what does it fix behaviorally, okay? And you might find like he stops reacting to kids because right now he's stressed, okay? So if we added kids in here, that's another stressor on top of the stress. So then you're going to see a bigger response. But if he's calmed down and relaxed, and then we bring in kids, we may not even see that because he's not building stress on stress. Does that make sense? So if the concern, then looking into the future is like, we're expecting a baby and all that stuff, and we're not sure how he's going to interact with the baby. Like I have exercises where we can socialize them with children. The problem that a lot of people have is they don't have access to children to practice with. Okay. Now, when it comes to dogs and children within the home, more often than not, it's going to be fine. Okay. Don't be surprised in the beginning if you get some growling or anything like that, because he's unsure. He's like, what is this in our home now? But typically, over time, the dog just learns like this is another person in our home. Okay. And then I personally don't recommend that people push like the baby and the dogs interacting You know, like they'll put the baby by the dog and take pictures for Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, you're putting your baby in a very precarious position.
Yeah.
Because if the dog decided, like, I don't like this baby in my space, it would bite the baby, not because they're aggressive, but because they would bite a puppy.
Yeah.
You know, they would say, like, get out of my space.
Yeah.
You know, so they're doing the same thing with the baby, but it doesn't translate well in the human world. Okay? So, you know, I do get some dogs that are like anti-kids, if you will, but then by the time of like the age of like the kids at, 2 to 3 years old, the dogs just like accepted the child. Okay?
Yeah.
So it can take time. But everybody's of course wanting like the immediate results, and I'll tell them like that's not reality.
Yeah.
You know, I just want him to like be tolerant and mind his business and not act out aggressively towards the child. And over time, when he's like, I guess this kid's not going anywhere, you'll see him just like coexist, and there won't be any issues.
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing, you know, because of the stroller and all that stuff, like the leash walking is always like the first thing that we cover.
Okay. Okay.
It's typically 2 classes. The first class, we're really focused on teaching them, and then you do your homework. And then the second class, as long as everything's going well, I start more so focusing on you to teach you how to communicate with them using body language so they know what you're doing. So my style of leash walking is if I take 1 step, the dog takes 1 step. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. When I stop, the dog automatically sits. And this is with a completely slack leash. I don't care what the environment is. I don't care if you're at, at a farmer's market, if you're out at the park, if you're in a Home Depot, or if you're just in the neighborhood. I want that level of focus. Okay. It sounds super complicated. It sounds like it'll take a long time to get, and it doesn't. It's actually very simple because of the methods that we use.
Okay.
The hardest part that people struggle with is the e-collar, because they feel like they're hurting their dog. Right? So then, it's not, I'm not wanting to hurt the dog, but growing up, I was raised old school, I was spanked and hurt. But my mom's intention wasn't to hurt me. The intention was to teach me lessons, to deter me from doing like certain things or whatever, right? And I'm better for that. So it's very similar. Like, we're not doing it with the intention of hurting the dog. We're doing it to teach things and to discipline them. Okay? There's no yelling. There's no shouting. There's no yanking. There's no pulling. There's no getting angry, because it's very simple. It's everything's at the press of a button. Okay? After those first 2 classes, that's what kind of dictates how we progress moving forward. So, like, assessing what you have here, we need the leash walking for sure. There's reactivity, correct? So that should be addressed with the leash walking stuff. If it isn't, it's a fairly easy solution. So if the discipline behind the obedience doesn't fix the problem, then we correct the issue directly. So like, let's say he's still lunging and barking at kids. Well, now we just need to correct him for the behavior itself. Okay, so like, the human equivalent would be if I saw kids at the playground and I started screaming at them and my mom spanked me. Don't scream at kids at the playground. It's super simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to stopping behaviors, it's easy because it's simply don't do that. Okay, obedience is a little bit trickier because we're teaching the dog to do something that they're not meant to do. They're not meant to sit when we tell them sit. They're not meant to heel when we tell them heel, or come when we call them. Okay? These are things that humans have created and learned and taught to give them better control over their dog. Okay? So those things take time to teach. Much like it takes time to teach a kid math.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're learning something. But when it comes to behavior, it's super simple. It's simply you don't do that. Okay? If all that's going well, the next thing I would most likely suggest for you is stationary control. So, because when the baby comes into play, and then like we start getting a crawling baby and all that stuff, that's going to change a lot of things. So some dogs will be fine with the baby until the baby starts crawling, and then they start to have issues. Because the thing that was immobile is now mobile.
Yeah.
Okay, so then a lot of times that's when people will notice like the dog starts to growl or whatever. And don't look at the growl as anything bad, but it's the dog saying like, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't like what's going on, okay? So that's where control comes into play. So if I know I'm gonna have the baby, on the baby blanket for, belly time or whatever it is they call it, and is crawling around, and I know these guys don't like that, I would want them to be off somewhere where they're not gonna move for a period of time. So that's what we call stationary control. This is the same thing that would allow you to essentially go to like a restaurant. Like here, that's a dog bed. It's an elevated dog bed. So we'll send dogs to what we call place command. and they won't move for like 3 to 4 hours. Okay, and it's nothing mean,
Yeah.
but it's like, okay, I have my baby crawling, and I don't want to worry about the baby dog interaction. Well, if I control my dogs here and I know they won't move for a period of time, that allows me to focus on the baby and keep my baby over here. Okay, and then once you're done with that, you pick the baby up. Okay, you're free. They're free to walk around and whatever. They're on the loose time, but you're using that control when you need it. The next thing that I would cover would most likely be like the door stuff, which is super simple. Technically, if someone's coming over, you could use like the bed command, but that doesn't fix the problem really. The problem isn't so much the jumping. The problem is excitement.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's teaching you how to.
Something just came up. He used to get so excited that he would pee when someone would like come close.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't do that anymore, but it just came to my mind. So
Yeah, it's because it's too much stimulation stacking
Right.
that the dogs lose control over their bladder and their bowel, whatever, and then they just like express themselves.
Yeah.
Super common. So a lot of times when I get that with like my puppies, I'll tell the owners like just have people ignore them because they're already excited, and the people come in like, oh my god, look at your puppy, and it's more exciting than the puppy's just like peeing everywhere. Okay. Yeah. So the problem isn't so much jumping and barking. The problem is excitement.
Sure.
That's what leads to the jumping and barking. So like when I deal with like my aggression cases, the problem isn't aggression. The problem is fear, anxiety, nervousness, territorialness. That's what's fueling the behavior. So whenever we see something, we're looking at it and going like, what's causing this to happen? Because then we can address the root of it, which then addresses the problem itself. Okay. So like, when I see this anxiety and this pacing and this back and forth and stuff.
I also think she used to go to the bathroom.
Does she have to poop, baby?
I think so.
I mean, it's a possibility. Do you want to run around?
If you don't mind,
No, that's fine.
what do we have left to do? I mean, I feel bad leaving,
Oh, no, it's fine. I mean, if you want to stay, I'm just explaining the whole
Yeah.
process and stuff.
Yeah. I will stay.
Okay, so, so then, that would be like most likely class 4, right? And then we're seeing how things are progressing and how you're feeling, and then from there I can like start to plan how we move forward, okay? Now because in your case we have the walking, we have barking when people come over, we have reactivity towards children.
Barking at other dogs and other people while we walk is probably number one,
Oh, yeah. It's
With only
with
this
him.
one.
She doesn't bark. She does this howl thing.
I saw it a little bit earlier, that
Yeah.
she looked like she was gonna howl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does she feed off his energy?
Yes, yes.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
Like she didn't used to bark, and then because he barks, she kind of barks a little bit here and there,
Sure.
at like people walking down the street,
Okay.
Yeah, this guy has
I think
taught so
he's-
many dogs
yeah.
bad behaviors, like
I
my
think
current
he's
dog.
like the root of evil.
Okay.
Yes, for sure.
So, not uncommon. So the leash walking exercise should ideally alleviate all those issues.
Yeah.
Okay. If it doesn't, we're working on it from day one.
Okay.
Okay, because that's the foundation for everything. By class 5 and 6, so because I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs, you're most likely in the 6-week range. Okay, from what I'm hearing in terms of what you're wanting. Okay.
Yeah.
So the way I operate is I get a feel for what's going on here, and then in my head I go like, okay, I know these are the things that will address the issue, and these are some things that they may need. Okay, so like the stationary control would one allow you the restaurant thing, but then 2, it would be for when the baby's mobile, or if you have to do stuff with the baby, last thing you want to worry about is what are the dogs doing. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where control comes into place. The leash walking, of course, will address the reactivity, both towards humans, dogs, and kids. The door for people entering the home is its own thing. So like 2 for the leash walking, 1 for the stationary work, 1 for people coming over, which then leaves us with 2. Okay. So then those last 2, if everything's going great, and you're like, holy crap, Jesse, this is going really well. Then with the last thing I would focus on is recall, which is come when called.
Okay.
Okay, in case they get off leash,
Yeah.
every dog, it's the most
They've done
important
that
command.
many times.
Yeah.
It's the most important command. Okay, so that would be what I would suggest that we cover.
Okay.
Now recall does take people the longest to teach because it requires you to go somewhere to practice. Okay, so unless it's convenient to you and there's a park right across the street, it's probably going to take you a bit of time before you get that to be fully reliable. but I give you the tools and all the information to build it to off-leash reliability, okay? Because recall or come when called, if not off-leash reliable, is pointless.
Right.
You know, if your dog's charging towards the street and there's no leash on it and you don't have that recall, it's pointless, okay? So that's the one command that I do always focus on and tell people, like, you really want to practice this to make it reliable. But then it comes down to you, of course, doing the homework, okay? And then we gotta account for the fact that, like, winter's coming, you know, we were going to fall and all that stuff. So, you know, I train rain, sleet, or snow. But then for the, you know, most people don't want to be outside for like 45 minutes training their dog in the winter, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to account for that stuff, okay? So they may take you even longer, considering that. Plus they're little smaller dogs, so I'm not sure how they take to the cold. Like my Chihuahua hates the cold, he's 8 pounds.
Yeah, it's super cold, he can't even walk, you know?
So that, of course, affects the training, okay? So, questions so far with any of this?
I mean, I think you explained it really well. It's kind of cool to hear it explained like you do. You don't really think about it that way.
Right.
Oh, like in terms of like with
just like just the nature of like
the training
and like how dogs communicate and
why
what our current environment doesn't do anything for them. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, because how humans think and dogs think is very different.
Yeah.
And humans look at dogs like these little teddy bears that like can do no wrong, and then if you have a dog that has issues, either you did something wrong or like they were abused in the past. And I'm like, no, like I get plenty of dogs. I've had puppies at 2 months like already biting the crap out of like their owners.
Yeah.
It's just genetics. It happens. So a lot of it is just a lack of structure, lack of like what to do. So just like with humans, we have laws, prisons, judges, jails and stuff that keeps harmony and keeps structure so that we can, coexist safely. Same thing for dogs, but people don't look at it that way. They just look at dogs as these like little things, and they want to make them happy, and everything's positive, and like, that's not how the world works. Okay, so a lot of people think when I come in that we come in and we make the dogs yelp and stuff. That's not the case. Like I said, we start low, we work our way up, find the number. They could have two very different numbers. They could have the same number. His could be very high, hers very low, and vice versa. I don't know. They know. Okay, so once you start the training process, that's how we figure that stuff out. And it's really like just like logical and like common sense stuff. And as long as you're following through with the homework, there's no reason why we shouldn't get the results that we're looking for. The biggest thing that holds people back is just going to the correct number. Because then they feel like, oh my God, like am I going to screw this up? Or like they feel bad because you think logically like I'm at 80 out of 127, that's really high, which yes it is. But if the dog's not listening, then it tells me that 80 is still not enough.
Sure.
So I don't go by how I feel about things. I go by the dog. I go by how the dog is behaving. If they give me everything perfect at 12, then I'm at 12. But if I have to be at 72, then I'm at 72.
Sure.
Okay. Otherwise, they learn like you're not going to go to the extent needed, and then everything is not functional. Okay. So I'm assuming you're trying to get both these guys trained.
Yeah.
Okay. So the cost to train both of them remains the same. Okay, like you don't have to do one program and then one program. The first class I would suggest that you extend half an hour. So we have 45 minutes, 45 minutes, the first 2 classes. And then after that, you're pretty much, it's almost always good with an hour for the 2 dogs. Because the first 2 classes is like the most information, it's the most like, oh, this is a lot of stuff to cover, okay? And then they do make a 2-dog system where it's 1 remote for 2 dogs. Only drawback is like, let's say you take 1 dog with the remote and she's left without it, then she has no means of like getting them under control. You can buy a second remote and pair it to the system, so you each have your own remote and you each have control over both dogs. Okay. Usually that's not something that owners will get to later on once they get a feel for how their household works. You only be using the collar when you need it. So like outside, going to new places, guests coming over. If they're great dogs outside of that in the home, then you don't need it. Once the baby comes home, fast forward to January, you might see some changes. You have it on because that's when you're going to need it. But then as they get used to the baby being around, eventually you end up not needing it most likely. Okay. The system that they would need, I believe, runs about 350 to 380-ish. Okay, and I'm giving more of like a higher
Per dog?
for both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one remote, 2 collars. Okay, because a one dog system runs 237, so I'm gonna assume 380 is high end.
Okay.
That's the most I would expect it. I think it's around 350 or so.
Okay.
If you decide to get a second remote, the remote itself I think is anywhere between 139 to like 179. Okay, that's why that you don't need off the bat. But if you decide like, wow, like yeah, this is great, but it's kind of inconvenient when one of us has the remote and one dog,
Yeah.
then you can always call the company and you can purchase it separately, pair it for you already. So when you get it, it's already ready to go. Okay. So because of COVID, we've had to change a lot of like how we operate and everything. Now everything's through verbal instruction, so I actually don't touch the dog. Okay. You're doing all the training. I'm present with you. I'm there with you, but I'm coaching you through everything. Okay. And in my opinion, it's better because you're learning a lot more because you're doing it yourself. Okay.
Normally it'd just be you like holding the leash and like there's not really much that has changed, right? Or...
So pre-COVID, like I would take your dog, you would be watching, I would be training your dog and explaining things,
Gotcha.
and then I would give your dog back and then say,
Oh, you do.
yeah, but now I just don't do anything. I coach you from beginning to end. Okay. We do have videos that we send, like kind of like self-mental videos, so that you would watch it prior to your lesson to get you ready and like educated on how things work. And then you would show up, and then we just jump right into training. Okay. So far, we've had a really good success rate with the training because nothing is tied to me now. The one drawback to me doing the training before was that if the owner had any difficulty, I would do it myself, and then the owner wouldn't learn how to fix that.
Right.
Okay, so now it's everything's you guys.
Better this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, a lot of people are liking this because it's not only like them doing it, but it's also effective. Like they're seeing the results, and they're like, man, Jesse, I can actually walk my dog now without my dog, pulling me down the street and all that stuff. Bless you.
Oh, thank you.
I had a client, it was actually our first post-COVID client. The dog broke the husband's shoulders twice
Oh my
and
God.
sent him to the ER 3 times in 2 years.
Wow.
Because he was a very friendly dog, 70, 80 pounds, but very disobedient. It was like yanking him down, and it caused some pretty bad injuries. And they didn't want to do anything with him because he was just so uncontrollable. He would cause the wife to break down and cry because he would run around the park and never return.
Oh my God.
They had no control over him.
Yeah.
Then they did the training, and within one class, he had 180, and he made a ton of improvement because he was getting formal discipline.
I'm interested to see what these
Yeah.
dogs look like
I have
trained.
high hopes for them.
Yeah.
Me too.
Especially, I think
She'll be great.
she's really smart,
Yeah.
I think. He's a little derpy. We'll see.
So, yeah, this is why I built my career essentially on using the e-collar.
Okay.
All the dogs I train, puppies over 6 months and up, is all done on e-collar. Because right off the bat, you get off-leash control. So, like, let's say they were doing something in the home and you're like in another room and you want them to stop and you have their collar on, you could correct it from a different room. Okay? Now, they wouldn't be wearing the collars all the time, only when you need them. So when you go for your walks, if guests are coming over, if baby's coming home and we need control over the dogs or whatever, if baby's gonna have playtime, you would pop your collars on. One of the most common things that I get asked is, when does the collar go away? Okay, in my book it doesn't when you need it. But if they're great inside the home, like, great for the baby, you don't need it. But you're gonna go for a walk, you need it, right?
Sure.
You guys drive?
Yeah.
Have you been on the expressway?
Yeah.
Do you go the speed limit?
Faster.
You go faster, right?
Yeah.
Most people do, right? And we usually get mad at people who do go the speed limit.
Yeah.
But if we see a squad car, what do?
Slow down.
Yeah. So it's called opportunistic behavior, okay? Everybody does it. Humans do it, dogs do it, cats do it, whatever. When they see that they can get away with something, they will. They'll at least will try, right? So for humans, speeding is the most common one, right? So I like to look at the e-collar as a cop on collar. When I know I need control, I'm gonna have it on. And when I know I don't need control, and they're pretty good, then I don't need it, it's off, okay? Has nothing to do with the training methods, has nothing to do with my skills as a trainer, none of that stuff. It's simply, dogs are not dumb, they're gonna learn, hey, when that collar's on, you have control. And then when you don't have that collar on, you don't have control. They're gonna play with that inch, give an inch, they take a mile, okay? So it's nothing good or bad, and it's not that you're always using it. Once they're trained, it's just like the presence of it, just like with us, right? Cops,
Yeah.
just the presence of cops. Everybody's
Just
driving,
feeling it on,
speed limit.
yeah.
So, inside the home, if there were to be behaviors that you were to be struggling with, I would show you an alternate means of correcting them. And I'll send you again supplemental videos. It's super simple. Because like, let's say they were barking out the window and you want to stop barking out the window. You don't need the e-collar for that. You can use another way of correcting the stop behavior. Okay, because it's just, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's not about sit, stay, or come or anything. It's just don't bark out the window. Okay, so that's very simple. Questions?
That sounds
When do
great.
we get our next section?
So Maria would handle all that for you.
Okay,
Okay, she handles the booking and stuff. She would send you the information,
Okay.
send you the pricing, the breakdown,
okay,
as well as the make and model of the collar that we suggest for you, which is the Dog 282C. It's
okay,
meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
okay,
It's a half-mile range, so plenty of range for the standard family pet.
Yep.
Fully waterproof system.
Okay.
So it's one remote to 2 dogs, and you can always expand to a second remote if needed.
Okay.
Part of your, or actually not part, all of your, because you came here, all of your consultation fee would get credited towards your training program.
okay.
Okay. You'd be working with me. Now we have been, so again, because of COVID, we were going to meet at Oz Park.
Right.
But now it's already getting dark fairly
Yeah.
early.
Mhm.
So depending on where you put your time and the weather and stuff, we've been training at Oz Park because it's a very busy environment.
It is.
And we're like, so most trainers, you train in a place like this, right?
Yeah.
Which I train as well here. But my methods transfer to the real world.
Yeah,
Okay, so like, I prefer to train in the real world, but if it's raining or if it's obviously snow and it's gonna get very cold, that's not always gonna be an option
mhm,
that we would switch to my facility.
Okay.
So we would just switch between do as much outside as we can, but if it's a bad or rainy day or whatever, then we would work here. But it's not, it doesn't affect the training because of how I teach it.
mhm.
As long as you're willing to, like, let's say here, with training, the dog's number is like 15, but there's nothing going on here. And then you go in your neighborhood and 15's not working, well then you go to 20, 25, 30. You
Mhm.
find that number that's gonna work in
Okay.
your environment, okay? And every environment's different. And so once you get used to it, like you'll just like proactively just adjust your collar
Mhm.
without even thinking about it, okay? Now, even though the methods are very effective and reliable, you have to do the homework.
She'll be fine.
Sure.
It wouldn't be the first time if she pooped,
Okay.
okay?
She just like has that face on. that
I
she
know,
rubbed
that
with.
kind of poop face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to do the homework, okay? And I like to consider myself like the lazy man's dog trainer. You
That's perfect.
train
We're pretty lazy.
as you go about your day.
Okay.
So if you walk your dogs 3 times a day for 20 minutes apiece, each of those 20-minute walks, you're training, okay? There is some stuff that you do have to set aside time for, but because of remote collar and the way that I use it, it's a pretty quick process. But you do, of course, have to follow through, okay? The biggest thing that holds people back is they don't like going up high on the number,
Mhm.
or they don't, for me, I always utilize my training, okay? Unless my dogs are actively on free time or we're in the home, they're under control in some way or another when I'm out with them.
Mhm.
So if I'm stationary standing at a red light, my dogs are sitting the whole time. If I go and sit down at like a Starbucks table to have coffee, my dogs are laying down at my feet. When I'm walking with them from point A to point B, my dogs are in a tight heel at my side, okay? So there's always control unless I have given them the permission to be free and play and enjoy that, okay? The program I'd recommend for you to address dog reactivity in general, stationary stuff, and people coming over would be the 6 classes.
Okay.
Okay, it's pretty, the reason my classes are so short is because of remote collar, okay? We try to build the common call, of course, to office reliability, but like I said, that most likely will take you longer, either due to weather or the fact that you have to go from one place to another to actually practice,
Mhm.
okay? Other questions?
How do we get the collar?
Maria will send you a link.
Okay.
She's gonna send you the name and the make of the e-collar. You wanna get that one. I'm sure you'll see some that say like $50. They're garbage, you don't wanna use those, okay?
Okay.
We actually had someone bring a dog in for board and train with a very cheap collar. We told them we're not gonna train the dog because it's not a reliable collar,
Okay.
okay? So she'll send you the make and model. You
Okay.
go on Amazon. They come with a 1-year warranty. The most common thing that we get is the battery, since it is a rechargeable lithium battery, does die, so it's like a cell phone battery.
Mhm.
But you can go on their website if it's outside of warranty, purchase a new battery, like $15, pop it in, you're good to go.
All right.
If it's under warranty, you send it in, and I think on Amazon, you can even extend the warranty to a 3-year warranty. But I've had my cars for 8 years and no issues. So it's an investment, but they last a really long time.
Yeah.
Okay? When you get your cars, you do want to test them out, turn them on, fiddle with it, read the manual that they send to you to make sure that they're working correctly. Because every now and then, because it is electric, they do send lemons. Sometimes the dial doesn't work correctly, so it should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, all the way to 127, and you'll see it'll go from like 5 to 35, right, with the tiniest movement. Okay, so there's something wrong with the dial.
Okay.
Okay, so make sure you want to read it, test it out, make sure that it's all working well. You don't have to use it or anything like that. Just want to make sure that it's functioning. And then once we start the training, I would coach you through everything. Okay. Other questions?
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
If
good.
you want to see how all this works, just simply go to my webpage or go to my YouTube channel. Which you can also have some access to my webpage.
Okay.
And then, so we've been recording everything now for a couple of reasons. One, since it's so much instruction, right, a lot of just talking,
Yeah.
you're going to forget stuff,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So if you forget something, you can go back to your own lesson, just watch it, okay? Or if you're struggling with something, I can send you another client's lesson and go, here, this is how we approach it. And then you have a reference point to use, okay? Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds great. That's
Pretty
we're
excited.
looking forward to.
Yeah.
get going.
Okay. So Maria will get in contact with you.
Okay.
She'll handle the scheduling and all that stuff. It is first come, first serve. So, you know, if she'll send you some times and then, you know, you can turn around and she's like, oh, sorry, someone already paid and like took that one spot. You know,
Okay.
she's pretty good about not like doubling offers to people,
Yeah.
you know, but you know, from the time, you know, we
Sure.
deal with so many people, it happens.
We're pretty flexible, so.
Okay,
shouldn't
yeah.
be a problem.
I'm sure you guys have a lot of new clients too. Everyone got a dog over quarantine.
Yeah, no, like it was crazy because I went from 30 to 40 clients pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Then I went to 0, and then it was like a slow incline, and
Yeah.
now we're like back to like, okay, now it's getting super busy.
Right. I feel
So-
like I saw like so many people get a dog over
Oh yeah, a
quarantine.
lot of puppies. I've seen people get a lot of Australian Shepherds, and there's another breed, German Shepherds.
Oh.
Like I haven't seen a ton of German Shepherd. I got like 3 German Shepherd puppies right now. We had a German Shepherd board and train, and then we had 2 German Shepherds just do private training with us. You know, and this was all within like the past like 2 months. And then I have like 5 Australian Shepherds on my calendar right now. So yeah. Anything else?
No,
I
that's
don't
it.
think so.
Also, it was a pleasure meeting everybody.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
If you have any questions, you let us know.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thank you so
definitely check
much.
out those videos.